Hola, hola, compañeros. ¿Cómo estás? I hope itong earphones natin ay gumagana. Hindi ko alam kung dala ko yung tamang earphones natin. Pasensya na mga kameta, talaga kahapon super busy tayo. Tuloy-tuloy yung mga events natin and engagements natin. Kaya sabi ko at least ngayon, habol tayo. Grabe, especially because yung time difference natin, grabe, 7 hours ba yung time difference natin. So by the time na patapos yung trabaho natin dito, biglang wala na, tapos ng araw niyo dyan. Kaya sabi ko, habol ako ngayon before it's too late dyan sa Manila. So thank you very much again, of course, dun sa mga na-comments and all, very kind comments and all. Of course, our hearts and prayers go to yung ating mga kapatid and folks in Turkey and Syria and other affected areas. So that was really a tragic and sad news. And alam niyo naman, para sa akin, when it comes to the issue of earthquake, mga ganun, tayo po ay na-traumatize nung batang-bata pa lang tayo because dun sa earthquake na nangyari sa Baguio. I think that was also a 7 Richter earthquake. So what happened also in Turkey was that was a very, very strong earthquake. And you know, what made it even more tragic as it was it affected yung isang area na marami mga refugees, especially from the war in Syria. So it affected many, many vulnerable people. So our prayers and love and hopefully, you know, whatever support we can mobilize and put together for all people who are in need and in difficulties in these times, no? For me kasi unang-una dapat talaga we have to recognize our shared humanity. It's a very important thing. Solidaridad, yung sense of solidarity, sense of compassion, that's very, very important thing. Of course, tayo sa Pilipinas, of course, we have a ton of problems to deal with, but that should never prevent us from showing solidarity and support and prayers and goodwill and compassion for people suffering all across the world. No? So again, our hearts and prayers go to folks in Turkey, Syria, and other affected areas, and we wish that the government authorities respond in the best way possible. Now, mga kameta, kahapon actually ang haba ng conference namin and all. I'll post videos of my presentation there on Spain, Philippines, the Indo-Pacific, etc. Thank God, mukhang the response was pretty good. I'm glad that our friends, mga compañeros dito sa Spain, were very happy with the discussions we had. Kanina lang, kausapin natin si Ambassador Emilio, is very good. De Miguel, who's Ambassador at Large of Spanish Foreign Ministry for the Indo-Pacific. So hopefully we can have more interviews and discussions with him. I look forward to that. Pinag-usapan namin of course, yung kasaysayan ng Pilipinas, Espanya. So much misunderstanding, so much myths, so much factual errors, no? And so much just pure ignorance that haunts our relationship with Espanya. Tayo kasi sa Pilipinas, napaka-apektado tayo sa American way of thinking, American culture, American sports, no, basketball, etc. So parang yung roots, yung connections natin to Espanya are not as much appreciated as they should be. And of course, it goes both ways, no? Dito rin sa Espanya, their history in the Philippines is not as much discussed in their curriculum, basic history. But in fairness naman, when you look at the experience, no? Yung experience of Filipinos here in Spain, most of them tell you the best of the stories, no? Habang sa America and other countries, there are a lot of issues about, kalagayan ng mga TNT, the crackdown on illegal immigration, racism, let's be honest about it, especially in America, yung anti-Asian hatred and racist attacks that we saw. Not, of course, we're not generalizing, but unfortunately, there were some serious situations that happened there over the past few years, especially over pandemic. Dito sa Espanya, thank God, no? Overall, and God willing, this will continue. The experience of many ordinary Filipinos, no, that here is so much better than not only expected, but also in a lot of other democracy and all. So, yeah, alam ko mga kameta gusto niyo pag-usapan yung mga, yung mga bardagulan, yung all TV, ano nangyari. Let's put that aside for a separate discussion. Of course, that tells you a lot about how difficult is the media industry in the Philippines. Ayan, yung all TV, yan, hindi sila nasana all. That's a bardagulan, that's a serious issue that I think we have to talk about separately. But let me just park that. We'll do it in a separate vlog. Dapat nakaupo tayo, pag-usapan natin yan mabuti. So don't worry, I'm following up dun sa mga nangyari sa Pilipinas, including yung all TV, including mga latest na, meron na ba tayong Secretary of Health na permanente? Meron na ba tayong ano bang latest yan sa cabinet? Politics sa atin. Anyway, now going back to this mga kameto, no, I just want to say now, when it comes to Philippines and Spain, I think there's just so much that is untapped, no? There's so many layers to our history, to our language, to our culture that we still have to rediscover. One thing I also noticed with our relationship with Spain, no, the idea of Spain is that unfortunately it has been, I mean, on one hand, of course, Noel Mitangere and all of those works made a huge impact in terms of our popular perceptions of Spain and its legacy. And colonial legacies are by nature negative, no question about it. But there were a lot of things that also Spain brought to us, including a history and tradition of appreciation for republican liberal ideals. This goes back to Cadiz Constitution, early 19th century. I mean, if you look at the Philippines, one reason the Philippines has a deep tradition of democratic republican ideals compared to almost all of our neighbors in the region, that's a legacy of Europe and Spain, right? And of course, Spain for a while was under Napoleonic France. It was itself exposed to republican ideals, to progressive ideals, and that was transmitted to the Philippines. That's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing is that, of course, Spain was also responsible for the establishment of the first modern universities, University of Santo Tomas, Ateneo, among others, and that was what contributed to the emergence of Ilustrado. No? We had Renaissance men who were the forefathers of our nations, well ahead of almost all Asian countries. That's why Rizal is seen as the hero of the Malayan people. That's why Rizal was invoked as the hero of Asiatic people when in the early 20th century they met in Tokyo. Students from all over the region came together, from China, from India, from Southeast Asia. They came together. They celebrated Rizal as their hero and inspiration, and they celebrated the Philippine Ilustrado as their inspiration. So the Ilustrado class was a reaction to Spanish colonialismo, but they were also influenced by Spanish education, Spanish culture, and their access to Europe because of their exposure to Spanish culture and civilization. And let's not also forget that Spain was a relatively backward empire, no? Kanina, isang interesting discussion na meron kami is about how the 19th century was really the collapse of the Spanish Empire. From the Bolivarian Revolution in the 1840s, all the way to the loss of Cuba and Pilipinas by the end of the century. It was a painful, terrible period in Spanish history. So in Spain, perhaps they're not talking as much about their 19th century, but I think the Philippines, we talk about the 19th century, but through a slanted perspective, no, through a kind of a limited perspective. And for me, rediscovery of that perspective is very important. But speaking of that, I think isang problema natin sa Pilipinas is that we treat Spanish like some countries, like how some countries treat French, right? It's like the language of the elite. It's a language of distinction. It's a language of privilege, right? When in fact, Spanish is a very, it's a cool language. It's a language na pang, barrio, pang calle, pang, pang alaskador, lahat. It's so funny. Like in the Philippines, those people who speak Spanish are, a lot of them tend to be people with very elite privileged background or elite privileged pretensions, right? And then you come here and you see all sorts of people speaking Spanish with different accents, different intonations, and you realize it's really an egalitarian, democratic language. It's a fun, happy, enjoyable language. It's the kind of language you want to learn, no? And we have to work on that, of course, hopefully in the coming years and so. It's just so comfortable, I have nothing against French, no? But unlike French, you don't go into this very complicated pronunciation and all of that. You don't have to learn the rien. Espanol is easy. Relatively easy in terms of pronunciation and all. Just the L's are usually and. You get what I'm saying? Of course, in Madrid, especial, a little bit of Lisp and all of that. But you get what I'm saying? So what's interesting is that in the Philippines, like, masyadong posh ang Spain because the elite of the elite in the Philippines have Spanish connections or pretensions or combination of both. But actually, Spain and Spanish culture is a very egalitarian, cosmopolitan, global culture. The other thing that you also notice with Spain, and of course, there's a Barcelona and Alta usually last year, but the other thing you also notice with Spain is they're very open and warm people, at least compared to other people. You talk to people here, they'll say the incidents of racism. It's nowhere like what you see in some other Western countries or advanced countries, no? Including advanced countries in Asia. You know which countries we're talking about, no? Racisms na meron dyan. So it's a very open culture, and Filipinos are really held in a special regard. Parang we're like We're like kind of like they're paborito people in a certain sense. Like these are like lost brothers and sisters, and now we're finding each other. Now you see more and more Filipinos coming here. Now more and more Filipinos learning Spanish. It could be the beginning of a new era. I won't say golden era, but it is a bronze or silver era in Philippine-Spanish relations. After 100 years of estrangement, thanks to that American interregnum, we are suddenly moving in a very interesting direction. I would say that President Duterte, for all of his problematic things, just to put it kindly, one thing he did was that he made us reassess our American legacy, no, or our legacy, or America's legacy in the Philippines. And I think that opened up the space for appreciation of so many other things in the world that is not named America. So again, I don't appreciate how Tatay Digong did it. I don't appreciate him jumping to the Chinese and the Russians and all of that in the process, because that's not really an independent foreign policy. But at least he helped us to deconstruct in a kind of Derrida deconstruction way. Like, why are we so, what's up with US? Why are we so obsessed about US? As if US is a gold standard for everything. Wow, that's so 50, 60 years ago. That's so 1980s, to put it most, generously. We have to look beyond the United States. And I think this is where also there's a chance for us to look back as much as we want to look forward. So look back in terms of appreciating Spanish legacy in the Philippines in the full sense of the word, not only what certain friars were doing or what Guardia Civil was doing, but in so many different ways. And not only in the ways that Rizal explained Spain to us in his novels, but in so many other ways that is much more nuanced, much more constructive, and some would say even benign, no? The other thing that I would want to also emphasize, we have to look forward to, because Spain is not spoken of as a big major power in Europe, unlike Germany, Deutschland, or France, or even UK, which is not EU but is part of Europe, or even Russia for that matter. Yeah, they're not a major power in that sense, but Spain is a G20 country. It has one of the biggest economies in Europe and in the world. It's a $1.4 trillion economy. Hopefully tomorrow pupunta din tayo doon sa some of the growth industries here in Spain, which is renewable energy. So the electric, the e-energy, green energy sector is big here in Spain. They're a world leader in green energy, and they want to build a strong relationship with us. I think Spain could be a very strong partner for the Philippines as we try to also transition towards a more renewable, sustainable economy. So I'm looking forward to more discussions and more observations of the green sector here in Spain, and what are the things that they can contribute to help us in the Philippines. Of course, some Filipino billionaires with Spanish background like Razon, Enrique Razon, French, Razon, Razon, okay. They're also looking at getting into the renewable energy big time, and I hope to see more of that. Ayala's and the rest also getting into that. Very interesting, very interesting. There's a lot of potential in this relationship. Spain also has a relatively significant defense industry. They produce some relatively good defense military equipment that I think could provide us some options. Again, you want to go beyond US, we want to go beyond China. I'm sick and tired of just talking about US, China, as if they're the only things in this world. No, yes, they're the two big elephants, but they're also lions, they're bears, they're giraffes, they're zebras, they're leopards, whatever, cheetahs. We have to reach to all of them, no? And Spain is maybe not the lion, maybe not an elephant, but they're at least a leopard or cheetah, and there are things that we can get out of that, our relationship with them. As I said, it's a $1.4 trillion economy. It's a relatively advanced and industrialist country. But for me, what makes really Spain special for us in the Philippines, mga kameta, is that Spain is it's a story of remarkable transformation, because only 56 years ago, this country was not too far from where the Philippines was also back in the day. Like, if we had our Caudillo, they also had their Caudillo, General Franco here. They had their own version of authoritarian system. Spain was very stagnant economy. It was a mostly agricultural society, very poor in Spain compared to many European countries, especially Nordic and Western European countries back in the 60s and 70s. So this was a very backward agricultural society just half a century ago. And now you go to Spain, much cleaner. I mean, Madrid is far cleaner than Roma. I love Rome, but come on. There's so many beautiful cities here. It's not just Madrid or Barcelona. There's Seville. Oh my God, there's so many places to go. You want to learn Spanish, you go to Salamanca. There's Valencia. You want to go to Paella, you can go there. So much this country can offer, just so much. And then there's Cordoba, so much culture, history. Of course, Madrid was founded by Arabs and Muslims, so you see that kind of cosmopolitan background here. This country just has so much to offer us, and so much to offer to the world. Now, Spain has great relationship with Latin America. We talked a lot about Argentina, we talked about Venezuela, Mexicanos, etc. But Philippines, it's, I think we're just so much, we always talk about Japan, China, US, whatever. But there's so much also we can do with Spain, I think. And Spain can also offer us a lot. And also, so Spain could be both the future and past for us. Understanding of our past and our roots in many ways, especially our language, culture, why we're different from a lot of our ASEAN and Asian partners. But Spain can also be a future, not like a solution to all problems. No, I'm not going to exaggerate it, but they can offer us a lot on the defense strategic front. They can offer us a lot in terms of renewable energy front. In terms of infrastructure development, because under Marcos Jr., we're moving from a $100 billion project under Tatay Digong with some mixed success towards a $320 billion project, infrastructure build-up project, as Secretary Balisacan announced in Frankfurt. Meetings nila kahapon, yung mga business meeting nila sa Frankfurt, Germany the other month. So we're moving towards a massive infrastructure build-up, and I think Spanish companies, what's fascinating here in Madrid is that it's like Middle East or Turkey. Like there's constant reconstruction, no? Ayan na, sobrang excited. See, senyor. I like about Spanish, they speak so fast. And it's funny, kahapon they were complaining that kawawa daw yung translator sa akin. Of course, I started with Spanish, and I said like, okay, en primer lugar, like first of all, muchas gracias por la amable invitación, and all of that, and yeah, and basta ang bilis ko nagsalita daw. Ang bilis rin nila magsalita. So, nahihirapan akong mag-catch up. Medyo uminit. Medyo sumakit na ulo ko. I'm trying to absorb as much as I can in Spanish. I could understand a significant amount of what was discussed, so I didn't get the translator and all of that. Pero yung pala nahihirapan din sila. But they speak Spanish the same way I speak English right now, or even Tagalog. But it brings excitement and all. Yeah, kailangan ko ng lip balm. And by the way, may konting orange and all done dahil sa paella na. Yung paya nila, I don't know anong nilagay dyan, saffron ba or something, biglang orange na yung kamay ko, yung lips niya, hindi pa rin natanggal ng kompleto kahit ano nangyami natin. But anyway, mga kameta, I need to get back, finish some work. Thank you so much, guys. Oh, by the way, dito tayo dito sa parang library nila. Yan. May library doon, tas restaurante dito. I love this place. It's fantastic. And one good thing also in Madrid is that a lot of banks and commercial centers, they just vacated these beautiful buildings and they become museums, etc., centers of art. So, wow, the heritage preservation here is fantastic. Lots of reconstruction going on. It's a very clean capital city. It's one of the few capital cities in Europe also which was founded by non-Europeans, namely Arabs. It's a fascinating place. There's just so much that we can rediscover about Spain, and that goes beyond imperial grandol, arrogante, and all of the things that Rizal's generation talked about. Yes, they dealt with hell, many difficult things back in the day. But Spain of today is a very different Spain. The democratic, prosperous, forward-looking Spain is a Spain that wants to learn. It's a Spain that is humble. So the same way that UK and US have a special relationship, especial, we can also have that with Spain. But unlike the UK-US one, we want it to be more symmetrical, more mutually respectful and all. And I can see that the attitude is very different. The attitude of the Spanish is very different. They're very open. They're very respectful. I really could feel it. Alam mo naman, mayabang din tayo. So, hindi ako madali ma-intimidate, very hard to intimidate me. And, I've dealt with many people from all around the world and different kinds of yabang level. And for me, like, okay, let's go, right? But here, in fairness, as I get to talk more with folks here, I'm really impressed by the warmth, by the openness and all. And by the way, thank you so much. Thank you so much also sa mga Filipino community here. Kahapon kasama natin isang kaibigan natin. Maybe I have to ask his permission if I'm gonna say him. Basta, thank you rin doon sa mga komunidad natin dito sa Manila. And ayan, nag-message na ba? Ayan. Response ko nga. Yeah. By the way, okay, I'll not say na lang there. Basta, Manolet, thank you very much kay amigo Manolet for helping us to a little bit go around and get a glimpse of the city and place. But we hope to discuss things more, especially the Filipino community here. The sociology of Filipino community here, the integration process here, the openness here. Yan, yung mga gusto mag-migrate siguro. Legal migrate. Baka ito ang gusto niyong bansa na punta. or gusto nyo magpahinga, na-stress na kayo sa politika natin, punta kayo dito. But don't worry about me. I mean, God willing, you know. We will stick around in Manila as much as we can, alright? Basta, ano lang, supportahan nyo na ako para magganaan ako. Otherwise, mag-fashion na lang ako. Mag-model or mag-showbiz na lang ako, alright? Alright, salamat guys. Thank you very much and talk to you soon. Ayan, ginamit ko na talaga yung ID ko. So again, let me, by the way, say, ayan, nagsasalud na tong mga to. Ako lang yata vlogger dito, eh. Wala yata mga vloggers. Thank you so much as always kay Ma'am Jocelyn Lomberio, Mula Olonan, Noemi Tablare, Maria Gazataya, Espanyol, Rizani, Michael Uy. Yan, thank you so much. Very, very much appreciated. So yan, I'll have to get moving because I have to just finish some papers and works. Ayan, lagare. Kailangan kumita, daming Marami tayong alaga, marami tayong Okay, thank you very much. Maraming salamat. God bless and talk to you soon.